obviously, well, it's great to have you on this. We've been fortunate to work together now. It's going on crazy 6 months, and we've yet to connect in person.
I know. It's one of the weird things about Zoom. We did a fundraise. I think I told you through the pandemic, and it was all on video. And I'm 6'3", and I just recently met the investors, and they say, "Wow, you're tall." Like, it's just of course they don't know, right? I mean, you just sort of all you ever see is this part of someone. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's made life a lot more efficient in a way, right? I mean, you've probably raised even potentially even quicker than in the market, right? Or
in some ways more efficient, right? You can have more meetings, right? I don't know whether the quality of the meetings is quite as good as it used to be, right? And then there's also the danger that more people will take the meeting that wouldn't have taken it before, right? So you have to sort of weigh that against it.
Right. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And there's pros and cons. Well, so let's start off. I mean, how would you describe Electric Gamebox today?
Yeah, so I think there's two ways to talk about it. The first one is to tell you physically what it is, and then I think more importantly is tell people like what it does. And let's start with what it is, right? It's an interactive smart room, 12 feet by 12 feet, projection mapping on all 4 walls, motion tracking system in there, touch sensors on the walls, and surround sound. And you step into that room and you have a 30 to 60-minute group adventure for 2 to 6 people. And we have locations, as we have a few in the UK, and we have one open in the US at the moment in Dallas, Texas, and we're opening a set of locations. So that's the kind of physical what it is. But I think the better way to describe this, to explain to people what it does, and what it really is a theme park in a box. And you can take this experience, you can put it into a shopping mall, you can put it into an FEC or into a movie theater, and you're having this fully immersive hour-long group experience. And the fun of it comes from the fact the whole team's working together to play the game and to overcome stuff together. And it's all about teamwork, and it's all about doing stuff together, which my last business, Tough Mudder, was all about as well. So actually there's a lot of parallels between the two. And we have games that are designed for younger kids, we have educational content, we have puzzle-based games, we have kind of action-based games where you're running about. So we've kind of got something for everyone.
Amazing. So that's interesting. I mean, it's amazing how the entertainment in a box and how much versatility, flexibility that gives you, in the future with really as technology changes. Doesn't that give you pretty much a white landscape to program to whatever the industry wants and that market wants? I mean, how much beneficial is that?
That's right. And often people say, okay, who's the customer for this? And you say, well, look, that's a bit like saying, like, who's the customer for a movie theater? Well, it depends on the movie. Yeah. And so we see, like, during the week, weekday evenings, we get a lot of corporate team bonding. We get a lot of date nights. Then during the weekends, during the day and school holidays, we get a lot of kids, particularly a lot of teenage kids. Parents saying that it's tough to find something to do with a 13-year-old. We were all that age once, right? It's that age where you think you're old enough to be doing your own thing, but you're not yet actually old enough to do your own thing. And so we get a lot of families. And then in the weekends and the evenings, we get a lot of young urban professionals. We get birthday parties, bachelorette parties, that kind of stuff. So, and because the content's so varied, and then during the day we get school trips coming as well. So like on weekdays. So it really is a big mix. And the idea was to build something where the content could be used in all these different ways. So as I said, we have puzzle games, we have choose your own adventure games, we have kind of shorter format action games that lend themselves to kind of like team versus team dynamics. So and it's fun, it's fun kind of coming up with the new content and the new challenges.
Yeah, I mean, so once you deploy and you get the units deployed, I mean, it's really become a content game, right? Or how do you see the market maturing once the boxes and the real estate is there?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, so we really think of ourselves as like doing 3 things at once as a business. So we're opening our own stores, which is great, and of course we're doing a bunch of stuff with you, and opening 7 more sites in the US in the next 3 months, Houston, Chicago, LA, DC, Salt Lake City, Denver. So lots of good stuff happening there. And owner-operator stores is definitely a big part of our future. But we also have a franchise concession business where we're selling someone a piece of hardware effectively and saying, look, you can put this into a movie theater. Our first US franchise concession opens in San Antonio, Texas next month. And that, there we're a manufacturer of hardware, and that gets deployed in, and then somebody else is operating that. And then the third thing we're doing is we're a content studio, and increasingly we're working not just to make our own games, but we're working with other people's IP as well. So we're about to announce a major partnership with an animation studio. Awesome. And also with a big gaming studio. And there, this kind of theme park in a box point really comes out, because it's all about becoming an activation partner for other great brands and helping build customer love and customer experience and engagement in a new way. And it's great that Disney has Disneyland and Disney World, but there's a whole bunch of other interesting, exciting content out there that we could work with and kind of use this theme park in a box part. And central to everything we're doing is about giving someone an experience that allows them to tell a great story afterwards.
That would be powerful when you have the real estate out there, and then you're just fine-tuning the content to those markets. I mean, in delivering, just like we see the independent films and some of the blockbusters, movies that do better in other genres and segments. So it's really fascinating to think about that long term. How's Tough Mudder, like, your background? Obviously, you have a pretty terrific background. Let's talk about your background a little bit. Yeah. How did I
get into this? Yeah. So I started my career as a counterterrorism officer. I spent 5 years doing that. So I was mostly in the Middle East and South Asia. And I did that straight out of finishing university or college, as you guys would call it in the US. And I did that for 5 years, which was great. Love that experience. Actually, really entrepreneurial. It was after 9/11, like lots of new challenges to deal with, big challenges, of course. And but great people, smart people, willing to try new things and take a risk. And I think from that, I came to realize actually I may not be in business, but I'm an entrepreneur. And so I moved to the States. I did my MBA in the United States at the Harvard Business School. Which I'm not sure if it was really worth 2 years of my life. It's quite an expensive thing to do, but for the rest of my life, I get to say I've been to Harvard now. So when I say stupid things, people think I was just confused. They give you the benefit of the doubt. Right. And so I did that, and then look, Tough Mudder was all about the big central idea was, right, most people that do a race aren't really racing; they're doing it for themselves. And Tough Mudder was a challenge that was all about teamwork and camaraderie, and getting people to come back was all about changing up the experience and doing new things. And that was a great run, and I love that. But it was time for a new challenge. And 3 or 4 years ago, what I observed was that more and more people were pitching me with angel investment ideas for experiential concepts. And my view was, having looked at a few things, there were a bunch of things out there that were once and done. There were a bunch of where you just couldn't see people coming back to it a second time. Right. There were things out there that you could see working in New York and LA and maybe in London, but hard to see how you build a big business there. And then I saw things where I was like, I just don't see how you won't end up with 1 million copycats tomorrow. Escape rooms are a good example. And I like the idea of building something where ultimately this could be a content thing. You don't go back to the movie theater to see the same movie, at least most of us don't, right? But we do go back to see something new. And so I became very focused on that. And with my background in kind of group-based experiences and doing things together, I thought, I wonder if we can create this interactive room. That was the kind of central idea. Can we create this interactive room? And so we built this super simple prototype up in a warehouse in North London, and London's a huge sprawling city, and it really sprawls. So when I say North London, we were 20 miles from central London. European VCs don't normally have to go that far north. So we built this prototype, and we had a really simple game. We basically had Pong. There were just 2 paddles, where you were on the floor mapped on the screen where the paddles were. So you were running up and down, and the pedals were doing that. And it was super simple, but it was fun. And so we did that, and then we launched in the US we launched in the UK in 2019. First store opened very well, like great reviews, really busy, and then luckily we raised some money just in time. We didn't know it at the time, but of course then along came the pandemic, and then we spent the last 18 months. We've done this big deal with Brookfield partners, and they've been great to work with. I think very visionary guys there that see the future of their industry is changing, and they're going to need new footfall drivers to come in. Yeah. And we have a role to play there. And similarly in the UK, we've opened in some of the big malls that we have over here. So we now have 3 permanent sites in the UK, plus a franchise concession and an FEC over here, and then we have Dallas. It's worth noting, and I'm not sure I'd do this again, we opened the Dallas site completely remotely.
Amazing.
So we built our tech in London, and we put it on a boat, and it arrived in the States. And literally, as you and I are speaking right now, we trained the team remotely, and we had a group of local AV installers put it all together. And people would say to us, "Great choice, Will. Amazing site. Really well done there." And I would say, "Look, I'll take your word for it. I mean, like, I've literally done a FaceTime from it. That's it." So it's yeah, but it's fun. So yeah, that's my background. And look, I've always enjoyed building businesses that are about bringing people together. And I don't pretend that we're curing cancer at Electric Gamebox, but I do think we're making a meaningful difference in the world. And one of the things I'm very proud of, and I really am very proud of this, is our power users, which we didn't see coming, are parents that have children that are on the autistic spectrum. And we've had mothers come in and become quite teary and say, "I can't tell you, what a difference this product's made to our family. This is something we all look forward to. And it's been years since I've been able to do something with my children that we all enjoy." And it's nice to know you're doing that. It's humbling. And it's nice to be able to do good and do well at once.
It is. It's wonderful. I mean, I can see that. I mean, it's tough to find the games today that a whole family can interact and play, and then have fun. It's not too simple or too challenging, and everybody can get engaged and feel like they're participating in something together. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Very cool.
It's worth understanding. We sell 70% of our tickets to women. People assume gaming, it must skew male, but not at all. A lot of our family groups, to stereotype, it is the mother that's organizing it. And the games are about collaborative, social, and work together. It's not in general, our games are not like violent games. You're like blowing the head off an alien or something.
Yeah. Obviously, being as well educated as you are, and with your experience at Tough Mudder, I'm sure you've had some tremendous words of advice, or even living it and doing it, and that's capable of
some scars on my back as well.
Yes, scars, I'm sure. And I mean, what's carried with you? I mean, what's in the DNA today and for the business world, you that you kind of live by that kind of helps you get this?
Look, it's a great question. It really is, and I'm often asked, what do you need to be a successful entrepreneur? And the truth is, there's all kinds of effective leadership styles, and there's lots of people, whose approach to these kind of questions would be very different from my own. And I'm not right and they're not wrong. But I think something I've observed that broadly seems to be true with people that, and I don't just mean entrepreneurs, but business leaders in general, is you have to have this unfailing belief in the long term that it's all going to work out. You have to be fundamentally an optimist and excited by the future, but that has to be tempered at the same time with a near paranoia about the short term. Andy Gove was the CEO of Intel, the chip manufacturer, and I mean his book was called "Only the Paranoid Survive," and I very not like the cheeriest title for a business book, but he has a point, right? But I think hopefully a business career, like a life as a business leader, is more than just survival, right? That you're building something and it's fun and it's enjoyable and it's creative, and I think for me, you've got to have this unfailing belief that what you're doing is important. And I think one of the things I observe is there are people out there that are in it just to try and make a bunch of money, and I don't really judge that. Like, I mean, there's more to life than making money, but if that's your thing, right, then fine. But in my experience, the people that enjoy it, and can sustain the effort over the long term, they like making things, they like growing things, they like believing that what they're doing is having an impact. And I think that's where the optimism part really comes in. So yeah, be a paranoid optimist. It's my advice to people.
Yeah, no, I can see. I mean, the paranoia is so it is. I mean, there's always something around the corner to think about. I can see. I see running on that is fuel. It can be straight fuel, high octane.
Yeah, you have to have a bit of fear. You do, right? Things go wrong, right? And like when they do, like rarely are they fatal, but they're hardly ever fun to deal with. So, but like to sort of put up with that, because it sometimes can feel like you're just sort of getting punched in the face at times, right? It you have to sort of believe it's all worth it. I think you have to both those parts.
I mean, saying that, I mean, what are some of the biggest challenges? Where maybe an example of one. Maybe you could go back to Mother days, or where we are now. But what I mean, obviously, opening in the middle of COVID is a heck of a challenge that you overcame. And that's amazing by itself. And raising money in a social entertainment concept in the middle of a pandemic. You've already accomplished some Herculean things.
Thank you.
But how do you what would you say? I mean, in your past and some challenging things you've overcome.
Well, look, I mean, look, everyday business brings challenges, right? And hopefully you kind of like learn from those and you feel like you grow. I think one of the things I always find hard when you're the leader of a business is you inevitably will deal with lots of people that are thinking about one part of the equation, and they're not thinking about the bigger picture. And the only good news is they often give the game away. They often start statements with, "Well, I'm just worried about X," and it's, "Oh, that's nice. I have to worry about a bunch of stuff on top of X." Lawyers do this. Like, let me tell you how you can get your risk in this part of the business down to zero. Like, okay, but my real risk is over here, right? And the more time I spend on this, like, the less time I have for like the bigger thing. So, I think that's also part of the fun, right? To make it all work, you've got to try and get everyone pulling basically in the same direction. And I believe quite strongly that we need to move fast and get to a place where we've got scale here. And that's when the conversations with a Disney or a Universal or an Activision Blizzard really become interesting, because we haven't just got 5 or 10 sites around the world. We've got 100 sites, and we're a meaningful partner.
Yeah.
And I think getting that balance right between kind of moving at crazy breakneck speed and understanding what it means to, on the one hand, kind of be efficient, and on the other hand, be inefficient, because you can't move really quickly, and not also inevitably kind of have a few things that are kind of exploding on a daily basis as well. It's just the way it goes. I think that's been a challenge, and in some ways, I mean, the pandemic was obviously a tough thing for us all to go through, and obviously we all wish it never happened. There's a lot of very challenging things to the world, unfortunately. But in some ways, you have to look at these things as a blessing in disguise. Being given this time to kind of be able to refine your thinking, to build out your library of content, to do more engineering on the back end, the whole time when you don't have the pressures of like day-to-day operations. There were some pros that came out of it. So, in the UK where I'm sitting today, we were basically as a country placed under house arrest for a year. I mean, like we were pretty much locked up like the whole time. You could go to the supermarket, the grocery store once a week, right? You could go and do like outdoor exercise on your own, once a day, and that was it, right? So so it wasn't much fun for a while, but we got through it. And I think what doesn't break makes you stronger. I always I always tell people that whatever the challenges we're dealing with, and it may be unique to us, but if you take a step back, anyone that ever tried to do anything has basically dealt with this problem before. So and most people will quit. So be grateful for the challenge, because the challenge is your friend.
Well said. Well said. Any in any books or things, audiobooks, or I don't know,
Yep.
are you a reader or are you?
Yeah, but both actually. Well, through the pandemic, I really got into bike riding because it was like you couldn't go to the gym and they were all closed, so I really got into that. And so I did a lot of audio books. I live in southwest London. I live in Wimbledon, where they have the tennis, and it's like
Nice.
a big park nearby us, so you can go.
Beautiful.
And so yeah, I read a bunch. Some stuff I've read recently that was good. I read Bob Iger's book, his biography, A Ride of a Lifetime. Like really interesting. Just like
what book? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Bob Iger's book, so CEO of Disney. So that was great.
Oh yeah.
We do a book club with the management team, with the junior management team at Electric Gamebox. We call it Rookie Bookie Club. Like it's for the junior managers, and I make them read a book every other month, and we discuss it. So I enjoyed that. I read the Cult of We, which is the story of WeWork, which is just crazy. Like it's and so on any given day when they think I'm kind of pushing a bit hard and like being a bit of a maniac with them, I'd be like, it could be worse. I could be this guy.
Nice.
So, but yeah, they were both for different reasons. They were both.
Yeah, that's great. I like that idea. I give them perspective. Maybe that's what we need to go back to. Give some of your team members real perspective on how it could be. I like that. Well, that's excellent. I mean, Wimbledon's amazing. That beautiful area. I can't wait to get back there. That was 3 years ago. One last question I have for you, in the industry, how do you see shifts in the industry today, major shifts or any shifts that are notable?
I think what's really interesting is, if you go back 10 years ago, there were four very clear types of industry that actually these days it's quite hard to tell them apart in many ways. So 10 years ago, you could say there were entertainment companies, media companies, and they made content, right? That's what they did. And then maybe some of them had theme parks, but in the main, that's what they did. And then you had gaming companies, and again, they made content, but they made a very different type of content. And you look at those two worlds, they're kind of colliding. Right? Like Netflix is trying to get into games, right? The gaming companies are trying to get into movies, and so that's interesting, right? I think these things are starting to coalesce, and what it means to be an entertainment company is changing. Then, like you look at the leisure space, right, and like what leisure meant. 10 years ago, again, very, very different. And you see a lot of like leisure experiential concepts again trying to become entertainment companies, and I think that's really interesting. Like if you look at the traditional movie theater, we're all coming out of the pandemic saying, right, we've got too many screens. It's not that movie theaters are going away, but once where you perhaps needed 12 screens, now you need 8, right? And that's how do you repurpose that space, and how do you think differently about that, right? And then the last thing you see, which is amazing, is that property companies themselves are trying to get into leisure, and by extension into entertainment. Our franchise concession here in London, it's in a former Debenhams. Debenhams was one of the big department stores over here. It would be like Macy's or something in the United States, right? And I think we all know, in the age of Amazon, right, department stores don't drive foot traffic like they used to. So you know that better than anyone, right? But you see this crazy situation where you've got these 4 huge industries, right? Leisure, property, media, gaming, and they're all kind of becoming entertainment, which is cool, and it's great for us because we're kind of in the middle of all of that. And but yeah, it's hard to put labels on things in the way that we used to.
What's driving that? Is it just a consumer? Is it you're competing at home with home experience so much, so to get them outside the house, or what's?
I think it's a great question. Look, I think, you know, there's if you watch it, like half the TED Talks will tell you, right, buying more stuff won't make you happier. And I experience as things you do with your friends, that's what will make you happy. And the truth is, right, there is more stuff to do at home, right? And you can have a Peloton, right? You know, I have one behind me, right? You can, you know, what you can, like the content you could consume at home now because of Netflix and all these other things are so much better than it was in the past, right? We're having this meeting in a way that we just couldn't have done in the past. But you know, the basic human condition is still social, right? Most of our brain is set up to deal with like building relationships with other people and doing stuff, right? You know, that's why, you know, when we're born, right, we're basically just a head in a tiny little body, right? Because most of our brain is designed for building relationships with other human beings, right? Because what we've been able to achieve, like, for better or for worse, as a species, is through the fact we all have to work together, right? Not because of what we achieve individually. And you know, that's unique to us, right? And so people want to do stuff together, right? That hasn't changed. Yes, they can do more stuff at home. And we live in an age where, you know, people are also more health conscious, right? So there is a limit to how much we can physically eat and drink, right? So and you know, we're all more aware of that. So I think people are looking for like fun stuff that they can do together, right? And then add into that, like, you know, the trend of Amazon and like how that's changing retail. And then, you know, you look at a company like Disney, right? I think of Disney as being first and foremost an animation business, but you know, it's really not, right? It's a whole ecosystem of like amusement parks and content, right? Toys, right? Cruise ships, right? The whole shebang, right? And I think that's a proven business model, and you know, that's, we see ourselves as being part of that future as well. But yeah, I think that fundamentally people will always want to do stuff together, and you know, this is why I don't believe that we'll be in a world where we're all working from home all the time. Maybe we'll work from home more, you know, maybe we'll all spend Thursdays and Fridays working from home, but the basic need to get together and have real human interactions is here to stay.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Well, I mean, that's an awesome interview. Awesome comments. Like, I love what you're saying here. I mean, I feel, you know, so blessed that we're able to work with you, and you know,
it's mutual. Well, you guys have been great, wonderful to work with, and I'm looking forward to meeting in person for the first time next week. Actually getting on a plane and coming to the United States rather than just talking to people. So
I know. I'm not 6'3", so you won't be doing that.
Good to know. Good to know. We're looking forward to it. Thank you for having me on today. This was great. Really enjoyed it, and we'll speak soon.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Okay. Bye.